I used to say that light was like the conductor of the orchestra that is our body, and that's all the hundreds and thousands and millions and trillions of tasks that are all our cells need to carry out. I used to say that light was the conductor. But in this episode that I just did with Dr. Catherine Clinton, she talks about our emotions and our thoughts as being an even more root cause conductor of our health. And I want to lead off by sharing this inspiring message that even if you are in a place where there's blue light or where there are EMFs, or if you have a chronic health condition, your mindset, your emotions, your thoughts, your nervous system, all of this stuff can help to support your health, even if your environment is not optimal. We have so much wiggle room and we have so much room for healing possibilities. And in this episode today, we're going to talk about all different strategies to help the body heal. A lot of these things have to do with frequencies. So things like light and sound, even, and how our body works beyond this chemical model where we are actually electric. Our bodies are electric. I always say if you forget that, stick your finger in a socket, you'll remember really fast. But we're going to talk about the implications of having a body that is electric, how things actually work in the body, and knowing this, how we can help enhance every single aspect of our health with so many free and simple strategies that even people who are really chronically ill and have really low reserves can do. I have a lot of people, even now in my blood sugar mastery program, who are just dealing with so much chronic illness and so much overwhelm. And a lot of what we're going to start with are these simple strategies of helping the body feel safe by putting it in an environment in which it was meant to heal, and working on improving the quality of our thoughts, or working deeply on our nervous system, subconscious mind, on how to rewire some of these beliefs and use our brain to send signals of safety to our body. So I'm really honored to welcome Dr. Catherine Clinton onto the podcast today. She is just a wealth of knowledge, and even just her emotional regulation, her just essence and way of being is so just delightful and calming, and you feel, oh, I just loved being in her presence. And I love following her on Instagram too, so make sure you follow her over there. But let me tell you a little bit more about her before diving into the interview. So Dr. Catherine Clinton, a licensed naturopathic physician, has spent over 17 years helping people overcome their health issues. She completed her Doctor of Naturopathic Medicine from the National University of Natural Medicine, but was diagnosed with 2 autoimmune conditions and Lyme disease while in medical school. And she began the long and difficult journey of healing, a path that led to the commitment to help others not only heal physically, but to return to the relationships we evolved with over millennia, with a deeper sense of health and belonging. Dr. Catherine has multiple articles that have been published in peer-reviewed research journals. She maintains a practice in Eugene, Oregon. Dr. Catherine teaches doctors, healthcare practitioners, and health enthusiasts from around the world in how to apply the principles of quantum biology for health, and is a sought-after speaker with speaking engagements across the globe. And you'll see why after this episode. She is just such a fabulous speaker. Her mission is to empower as many people as she can with the knowledge of quantum biology for health, and to help them explore a new perspective in healing. You can head to drcatherineclinton.com to get more information, and we are going to link the pre-order form for her new book called Optimize in the show notes. And many, many, many of you always are asking me for books. And so this is your opportunity to access a book with tons of the information that I teach about, and you are going to love the additional information and expertise of Dr. Catherine. So I'd love to welcome her onto the show. Hi, Dr. Catherine. Thanks so much for being here on the Light Up Your Metabolism podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to dive into some of our favorite topics, right?
Yes. We were talking earlier about what you're feeling passionate about. It's like, what am I not feeling passionate about learning and teaching when it comes to mitochondria and nature and light and emotions? I mean, this is like, I feel very nerdy, but proud of my nerdiness because it just is, it's really interesting to learn and apply.
Yeah, it's so fascinating because we're just really taught and indoctrinated to stay in that chemical model, which can be wonderful, but it also hits all these dead ends where quantum
Yes.
biology, all the stuff we're talking about right now, really opens up. So it's exciting.
Yeah, and that's a really great sort of segue into what I want to ask you about. I'd love to talk to you about your own journey. And then if you can also infuse in there, maybe telling people what that means. Like, what is a biochemical model? Why is it falling short? How did it fall short for you? And then what led you to dive into quantum, circadian biology, biophysics, and maybe what those things mean and how they supported you. So you can just monologue for a little while. We want to hear the whole thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are great questions. And I was in naturopathic medical school. It was my second year of school, really long hours, long clinic hours, and my nervous system just didn't have the foundation to do it, right? So I was diagnosed with Hashimoto thyroiditis and ulcerative colitis, two autoimmune conditions. I was diagnosed with Lyme disease, multiple GI issues, and that's when I started really diving into how to approach my health because I was sick. And what we're taught in allopathic conventional medicine, even naturopathic medical systems, look at this chemical mechanical model where health is chemical balance and disease is a chemical imbalance, or mechanical alignment being health and mechanical misalignment being disease. And that accounts for a lot of things, but it also brings us to many dead ends. When we're talking about how function happens in the body, we're taught that there are these biological keys that randomly collide all over the inside of a cell till they find their receptor and unlock action. Well, that's true. There is a conversation there happening, but it isn't always chemical and mechanical. It can happen with vibration, with resonance. Waves of information that come from light or sound or fields of energy like electricity, magnetism, our thoughts and emotions, electromagnetic waves. And when I was really sick, the physician that I was doing clinical rotations under, she was my physician too. She really encouraged me to look at psychoneuroimmunology. And that's just a big word for how our thoughts and emotions impact our biology and state of health. And from there, at the time I was researching mitochondria because this was like 20 years ago, over 20 years ago. And mitochondria were really emerging as this pivotal piece, foundational piece of our health. And I came across a research article from Martin Picard, and he was looking at how the state of our thoughts impacts our mitochondrial function and our production of ATP and the production of reactive oxygen species. And I was just blown away. And at the same time, there was emerging evidence coming out about quantum biology, about how we have this language of frequency in the body. We have this fast, efficient way to communicate. You know, we are trillions and trillions of cells, and each one of those cells is completing hundreds of thousands of tasks. Some researchers say up into the millions each second. So that's trillions of cells completing millions and millions, billions, trillions of reactions each second. And that random collision model, that chemical mechanical model, just mathematically can't explain that. And that's where quantum biology comes in. And that's where I got so excited about it. And I just still am so excited about it.
Yeah. So walk us through maybe you you were dealing with these autoimmune conditions, Lyme, and what you were learning in naturopathic school. Are you saying that you ran into dead ends with that? So you weren't able to fully heal. So how did your story, how did you did you reverse those things? Did you heal from that? Let us know that piece.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I got to a level of healing. So I wasn't able to continue to do clinical rotations and get all my work done in school. I had to take a break and slow down because I was so sick.
Yeah.
And so naturopathic interventions, supplements, diet, those things were really helpful in getting me back to be that productive person. I could go back to
Yeah.
school, but I wasn't healthy. I was not healthy. I was still having symptoms. It was just bearable, right?
Hmm.
But that's no way to live. And I think many of us with chronic disease can understand that kind of yo-yo between really sick, can't do daily activities, and barely able to, but not thriving. And that's when I first discovered circadian biology and hydration, true hydration, and fourth phase water. And that just blew the doors open for me. And combined with this really nerdy emerging field of quantum biology, where there are quantum effects in living systems, it helped me understand it isn't all just chemical and mechanical. There are waves of information all around us. There's this invisible blueprint held in light, in sound, in water, in fields of energy, whether that's EMF or our thoughts and emotions that guide biology. And that's what really set me on my path to healing. And I love being able to share this information with other people because a lot of this stuff is free and accessible.
Yeah, I love that. And so you have been talking about vibration, frequency, think words like coherence. And so maybe we can start to dive into like that we're surrounded by information. So can you help to suss this out if someone's used to this biochemical model, like these certain amino acids or this, just a chemical imbalance in the brain, like these terms that we hear frequently. So we're talking more about, uh, yeah, like frequency, vibrations, and
Yeah.
how do we make sense of all of that? Where would someone start to understand these pieces, like making it a little bit more concrete for us with the light and hydration? I love starting there.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great um, place to start because we're just really trained not to think this way, right?
Yeah,
When you hear this, when I start explaining this, people are like, "What are you talking about?" But we're actually really familiar with it when it comes to our technology. If you
yeah,
think about it, we have no problem pulling all the information in the world through a wave of energy onto our phone,
yeah,
right? Wi-Fi is all around us. We can use that to get energy and information. We can put our devices on a pad. We don't have to plug them in to charge. They can get energy by making that relationship, getting in that field of energy. And I think that's what we have to understand is true of the body as well. Our cells make their own electromagnetic field, and that guides their behavior. It guides their movement. It guides differentiation, how a cell becomes an ear or an elbow. Those fields, just like the fields we use on our phones to access our email and the vast information that's on the internet, we have that capacity in our body to do that same thing. Our cells utilize that energy. And for example, those different spectrums of light that we see both in artificial light in our indoor lighting, but with natural lighting as well. If we go out into the morning light in that first couple hours of sunrise, and as the sun starts to rise over the horizon, that sends this message. The light comes into our eyes. It hits that thin layer of the retina that's in the back of our eye. There are little cells there, receptors, melanopsin cells, that actually capture that information. They turn that wave information of light into an electrical impulse. And that is taken down our optic nerve into the middle of our brain, where we have a master circadian clock, our suprachiasmatic nucleus, for a big word there, but basically we have that clock in the middle of the brain, and then it sends out an electrical wave or impulse to all these other peripheral clocks we have in our body. So our hormonal balance, our metabolism, our neurotransmitters, our immune system, our digestion, our cardiovascular system, our respiratory system. I mean, all the systems are guided by the light in our environment. And we could say that the same is true of artificial light, that if we aren't getting that natural light that we have evolved with, we're only getting a very narrow band of LED light. Usually that's our dominant light source in modern life, right? And that tells our body that it is noon, that we have to catch up. This common practice of waking up and looking at our phones, it spikes our cortisol. It tells us that it's noon, we're late, hurry up, get going. And it spikes this nervous system overload. And, this beautiful relationship that we have with the light in our environment, the natural light in our environment, it doesn't mean that we need to be living in the hut in the wilderness, right? I mean, there's a lot of benefits to that, but
Yeah.
it doesn't take that much. Just like our phone, just like our capacity right now to go on our computer, to go on the internet and find the answers we need, it doesn't take that long. Same with this light information in our environment. If we can go outside, if we can get that light in our eyes, on our skin, it sets up all these biological processes that bring balance and vitality to the body. Same with as the light goes down. If we can follow that rhythm of the sun and honor the darkness of the night, we see all those things I listed are having the same effect during nighttime, during darkness. Our metabolism, our hormones, our immune system, growth hormone, thyroid, all of these things are being set up at night when we are being cued by a lack of light in our environment. And many of us aren't getting that lack of light, right? Because we are up with LED lights on, we're watching Netflix, we're on our screens. Yeah. So that's just light information held in waves that guide almost every single process in the body.
Yeah, I love that. And it's beautifully said. It's such a nice outline. And I love the idea that we're starting to concretely see a wave of light gets transformed into electrical impulses in our body that's not as slow as like a hormone getting the receptor, releasing this, traveling through the bloodstream. That process is too slow. So it makes more sense that we are electrical. I always tell my clients, if you forget that you conduct electricity, just stick your finger in a socket and you'll remember really fast. Obviously, don't do that. But even, if someone's heart stops beating, what do? We literally shock them with electricity to bring them back to life. Like if we have an electrical current, like if we're able to maintain that electricity flow through our body, that's part of that's what's sustaining our life, right? Just like our phones need to have the flow, the charge being held in order to function.
Yeah.
And I love these examples of the outdoor light. And you mentioned how many tasks that we need to run inside of all of our cells all the time. And it sounds like the light helps to organize all of that, like a conductor of an orchestra. So it's beautifully orchestrated and coherent, right? Is that word coherence that we hear a lot about? Can you expand on that more and how that might ripple into other areas?
Yeah, that's a beautiful setup that you did right there, because it does organize things. And coherence is just the idea of two or more things working as one. And we can talk about quantum coherence and this idea of waves and get really nerdy, but basically it's like two people dancing the tango, or multiple molecules of water forming a wave that travels the ocean, right? This incredible ability to work together as one, yet still maintain that individual identity.
Like a
And
school of fish? That's kind of
yeah,
what I'm thinking. Okay, it came to mind.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely,
Coherence. Yeah.
absolutely. Two or more things working as one. People working together to row a boat in unison, right? If you
Hmm.
are on a boat with 20 people rowing it and you're out of sync, that boat isn't going to go anywhere, right? And that's what's happening in the body. If our organs, if our tissues, if our cells can be coherent and work like an orchestra or a symphony where everyone's playing the same song, everybody who's rowing that boat in unison, then we can have healthy biological function. When someone starts to play out of tune or someone starts to row at a different beat, it works against that coherence and that vitality and that just smooth operating system that we have in the body. And we can look at how our thoughts and our emotions are really the conductor of that coherence in the body. I was just speaking with someone who works with inmates, and we were talking about quantum biology and light and grounding and circadian rhythm and all sound, all of these different things, avoiding Wi-Fi, all these things, right? And she was like, okay, but I work with people that are in prison and they don't always, they're not always able to get outside or the light,
Yeah.
all of these different things. What can they do? And I was like, well, the most powerful thing we have is our consciousness. It is our conscious thought. That is the conductor of this state of coherence. It is the person at the front of the boat beating that drum so everybody rows in unison. It is that conductor of the symphony so every instrument is playing together to create that beautiful song. All the cells working in unison. That starts with our conscious and subconscious trains of thought.
Wow, that's wild. So I usually use the example that the sun is like the conductor of the orchestra, and when the sun is conducting, it's doing a beautiful job. Orchestra sounds coherent, wonderful, harmonized. Yet these other man-made light devices like our laptops, our phones, the Netflix, the LED lights are almost like these kids running up from the audience and conducting part of the orchestra and making it go all out of tune. But now we're adding to this that our mind and our thoughts, our emotions are maybe even perhaps more foundational than light. Like I've heard of, the biology of belief. And I
Mhm.
think that this is a really powerful tool that many people are not using to their advantage. If I don't know if you see this too in with the people that you work with, but it's almost like the more informed people get, the more dysregulation they tend to exhibit. And I feel that that's because if you think that, oh my God, there's lead in this is in the tap water, and oh my God, the tap water touched my thing, and oh, the EMFs, and I feel so dysregulated just thinking about these things. So could this explain why sometimes we are we know too much, or we're just running on this train of fear, and we think that we are now victimless or victim to all of the things that are happening, like, oh my gosh, I work in a bank and the blue lights, so I'm going to get all these problems. Versus, are you saying that we could perhaps rewire our thoughts and beliefs and remind our body like we are safe and resilient, and it's okay that there's EMFs because I am a strong coherent field. And is that what I'm hearing? Because that's
Yeah,
what
absolutely. Absolutely. I think you bring up such an important piece, especially in the wellness world, right? Because when you don't feel good, you're searching for answers. You're
for
trying to
sure.
get better. And the more you search, the more answers you find, right? And I think that can become really overwhelming, like this to-do list, endless, we could sit here for days and days just creating a list of things that make us healthy.
Or
And
endless possible causes of why you are feeling the way you are, like, well, is it this? Is it the metals? Is it the parasites? Is it the
yeah,
gut bacteria? Is it my blood
yeah,
sugar? It's like,
yeah,
oh my God, we can go crazy trying
yeah,
to find that root
absolutely.
cause.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think you bring up a really important piece that if we understand that our thoughts and emotions and our outlook is the conductor for our body being able to work as one, then we realize that that is not the way to achieve health. That doing something that maybe is unhealthy can be healthy if it's bringing us that sense of joy, right? When I'm talking with people about diets, people get really dogmatic. We have to eat this way, we have to eat that way. And it's like,
Can't have a seed oil, can't have a drop of sugar. It's like
yeah,
there's so you could feel the energy behind them telling you like, I eat this clean, I do this, and it's like, I know you do. I know you do. I don't believe you.
I
And it's like,
know.
I know you're hurting. But yeah, that clinging, that perfectionism that shows up, fight or flight response that shows up feels so dysregulating.
It is so dysregulating, and our cells have to get in a state of safety. They have to get in that parasympathetic state for them to repair, for autophagy, for all of these things to happen in the body to repair dysfunctional cells, get rid of things that need to be taken away. And we can't do that when we're in that sympathetic overdrive, when we're in that fight, flight, freeze, because our body is in a state of danger. And that comes first and foremost with our trains of thought, right? Because I think you and I have both seen many people that on paper, they're doing everything right. They're doing everything right. But their state of being is this hypervigilant, sympathetic, dominant fight, flight, freeze, and their body just can't get into a state of healing.
Like it sounds like that cell danger response where our mitochondria are purposefully stepping into this or just being stuck in more of a protective state, like you said, where they're not prioritizing things like glutathione production and antioxidant production. We're not prioritizing methylation and DNA repair. We are bracing, we are increasing reactive oxygen species, which is inflammation because the molecules are signaling, but all the while. And then in functional medicine and naturopathic medicine, I feel like we're too smart for our own good, because then many times people who are stuck like this, they go in and they're like, well, I have low B vitamins. I have low, I'm not methylating, so I better take methylated B vitamins. And then I have high inflammation, so I better take a fish oil. And I have low glutathione, so I better take NAC. And I'm not knocking on the people who did this. I was one of these people because that's what I was told to do, right? That's what we're told in functional medicine. And I got such an intense histamine reaction from that because my body was like, girl, I'm doing this on purpose. And it's like, I'm trying to override the system. And then my body needed to communicate with me in a big way, like, hey, I hate this. Don't do this anymore. So I got a more cell danger response from histamine and other molecules that are triggering a lot of symptoms in my body. So is that do you see that in your practice? Like, is this that cell danger response issue?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think you can probably agree with what you see as well, is that telling people to put that aside for a second and heal and cultivate their relationship with the world around them sounds so mundane, right? They're like, wait a second, I have this 37-page lab report that shows this, 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 and that. And what about this? And what about this? Uh, You know, all of
Yes.
these things. And it's like,
Yes.
yes, but that's saying what's happening right now. That's your response to your current place in life. And let's change that place in life. Let's find a relationship with the rising of the sun so that you feel enveloped in an actual relationship, that you feel safety when you see that sun, that you feel held by the ground beneath your feet. Those are things that have powerful effects on the body. That level of coherence ripples through the body in a way that most people don't understand, that we are in an epidemic of disconnection. We are looking at diseases and obesity and this and that and cardiovascular, but it's an epidemic of disconnection. We have no relationship with the sun, with the moon, with the seasons, with the ground beneath our feet, with our families, with our communities, even with ourselves, right? We're not in tune with how we're feeling, what that feeling means. And I think that really gets to the root of disease and symptoms and health and vitality.
I think that's so beautifully said. I have full body chills right now because it's it's so beautiful and simple, yet it resonates so deeply when you say those things that there's this truth. There's we know that there. I feel we can all identify a simple truth to that. Like the essence of that message is, oh yeah, like we are made of the same stuff of this earth, and we live typically lived in harmony with the earth, with the seasons, with the light and dark cycles, with the feast and famine cycles, with the heat and the cold, and everything we're doing in our modern life, yes, is for comfort, but it's also, like you said, disconnecting us so deeply from being connected with nature. And in that environment, our body knows exactly how to heal. Like, what happens if, a tree gets like hit over in a storm? Well, it's growing sideways now. Like, it's like a lot of times it's fine. It's like it knows what to do. It might be a little, cockeyed or something, but it's just we are nature. We forget, like, if I cut my hand, what do we need to do for it to heal? Nothing. My body knows what to do. And I think that when we are so cut off from nature, which we are nature, we're getting cut off from ourselves and from our own intuitions and from our knowing that our body is self healing, and that the more we get cut off from our intuition, the more we're trying to outsource that to other people, let's say online, who like know all these things. And I understand when you are in a desperate state, like, this is not at all a judgment. This feels natural, right? But I think that we're maybe standing here suggesting that we want to encourage you to like go inward as well by putting yourself in an environment where you're getting the signals that are telling your body exactly what programs to run, exactly what, genes to turn on and off, how to shift things, which hormones to release, and to help reorganize all the tasks. So things like autophagy and getting rid of dead and damaged cells or mitochondria, that piece is not skipped over because oops, we flipped the lights on, right? And then this idea of when we can feel held and also be in a state of receiving. I think so many of us are trying this masculine energy that's very rewarded by our culture, that it's like we feel like we have to do something. It's like, I can't just sit outside. I can't just do breath work. I have things to do. I have supplements I should be taking. I have protocols I should be following. Like, I need to work out at 6:30 a.m. because if not, when am I going to fit it in? I'm like, don't fit it in. Like, take a break. I love you, and take a break. So, but then to feel held, to receive the light, that enveloping warmth, that the endorphins that we receive from the sun hitting our skin, to receive an impulse of all these electrons through our feet, calorie free, carb free energy, and to feel that we are receiving from nature and becoming more coherent. Maybe that can be the place where we can start to say, oh, maybe I don't have to do as much. Maybe I do live in a self healing body. Maybe my body, maybe I don't have to try as hard. Maybe pushing and tensing against isn't the best option. And maybe from that place of borrowing the regulation benefits of nature, we can then, the noise can quiet, and then our mind and body and our field becomes more in harmony and resonant and can support better thoughts and emotions that can then remind us, I am safe, I am resilient, I can heal, and we can start maybe starting to believe that a little bit more. So I don't know what you think about all that, but um,
I think that's
yeah,
beautifully said. Absolutely. And it's so interconnected, right? Like I
yeah,
teach a practitioner's course and it's parceled up into little pieces. Like we're going to talk about the nervous system. It's like
yeah,
it's all interconnected. We
it
can't
is.
really put it into boxes because what we feel is affecting the world around us. The world around us is affecting us. It's this cycle, this spiral, because like you said, we are nature, and walking back into those relationships that we've walked away from holds so much healing. And I think that it's really, um, just just a horrible thing that we have relegated that to the nonsense, to the ineffectual, to the castaway knowledge that is so important and foundational to our health.
Beautifully said. And I personally, and this podcast doesn't need to be about this, but I just wanted to make one other personal note that the more I became connected with nature as I started doing all of these quantum and circadian practices and getting outside and feeling connected from the earth and just my state just shifting, I actually, for the first time, felt connected with the presence of the energy of creation of God, and I felt so much more connected to myself and then to the world around me and to a higher power. And for me, that was like light in the darkness, in these times where you don't feel hopeful. I think that many of us are cut off from that, or maybe don't believe in these things. But when you're connected with nature, it, I'll just say, I would maybe be open to feeling maybe a shift in how you may have felt before about a higher power, a creator, a source energy. And I personally feel that it's like, oh, I feel more confident because I know that I was, my body was created to heal itself. So I have a stronger feeling of confidence of remembering. So that has been really helpful for me on my journey as well.
Yeah, I think that's a huge piece of our health, right? Belief. I mean,
Mm,
think of what really heals us, right? This feeling of connection, this sense of belonging, this feeling of being loved. We can't measure that. We can't quantify it. We can't
we
isolate
can't
it
do a double
down.
blind placebo
Yeah,
controlled study on it.
we certainly can't. Those
Yeah.
things, we must have faith in those. And
Mm,
faith is a huge marker of our vitality, our resilience, our overall health. And that faith, I think that we start to tread into waters when we argue about where that faith should be placed. But having that faith, there's no
mhm.
doubt how important that is for our health. And it can be in whatever you want to
Whatever
call
form.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. A
whatever
religion,
resonates with you. The
yeah,
importance is the resonance, right? Like
yeah,
whatever you believe, whatever you feel is important for you, then it will resonate to your, I think it will just be great. So it's
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. I think there's this, just, I don't know how long, a couple centuries at least, this separation between science and spirituality, where it's like they are completely separate and you cannot even inch them closer together. And it's like, I think we've done ourselves a huge disfavor to deny this phenomenon of faith. I mean, look at how science is done. Look at bias. Look at placebo. Look at all these things that are woven into our science and cast away. When
Yeah.
if we put our focus in them and reinforce them, how beneficial for our health that would be. And this, just completed version to those two things coming together, if we could become a little bit more comfortable and say, this isn't a denominational kind of thing. No one's telling you
Hmm.
what to have faith in. We're just saying that this spirituality of whatever kind does hold healing in it.
Yes.
And explore that how you will, but understand that that is a truth about our humanity.
Yeah, I love that. I heard like a reel saying science is a religion of our material world. And so
Mhm.
it's kind of like getting boxed in where it's not allowing us to connect. But I recently went to an event called Confluence. It was hosted by Alex Zek. You were on his podcast. And I feel like that was where science and spirituality was starting to meet for me. And so that's not topic of my podcast, but it is something that I'm starting to. It's like I feel like I can't ignore, or I don't want to brush these things aside, because I think, like you said, everything is connected. There's so much overflow with all of these things. So, yeah, I appreciate you diving down that pathway with me real quick. And so, kind of, I think related to that, now I'm thinking about Confluence. I'm thinking about Veda Austin. I'm thinking about how water is some of the characteristics of water. But I love to kind of dive into the water conversation, because I do talk about light on this podcast a lot. The emotional piece, the mindset piece, that's sort of relatively new for people. And I'd love to kind of go into water. And I know you have a book coming out that's going to talk about a lot of these topics. So maybe we can use some of that for future topics as well that we can get into in the episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Water's fascinating. Water's fascinating. And I love Veda Austin's work. She's doing incredible work. She's now working on a documentary. I
I
was
know, I can't wait to
honored to
see it.
be a part of that, honored to contribute
Yes.
to her book, The Living Language of Water. And I think that science is starting to understand water in different ways than we've thought about it before. We've thought about solid ice, gaseous steam, vapors, and liquid water. We now understand that there are many different forms of ice, right? And there are many different forms of liquid water. And that's where I start to get really excited, is about these different forms of liquid water, because we are predominantly water, right? We're 60 to 70% water by weight. But if you were to line up all the molecules in the body, we're almost 99% water, because the water molecule is so small, right? And what does that mean? Well, what's happening with water in the body? The idea that it's all this bulk H2O water is really a
Like sloshing
misunderstanding.
around like in a glass. Like we don't slosh like that.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's some of the work of Gerald Pollack, right? And Fourth Phase of Water, his book, really, and of course his research that he just is doing continuously. Him and his research team out of the University of Washington and the Pollack Laboratory are looking at how, when water comes against hydrophilic or water-loving surfaces, like our cell membranes, our DNA, our fascia, collagen,
Blood vessels.
yeah, our vessels, blood, lymphatic, all of these things, those tissues allow water to come right up to the surface. And when it does, it changes structure. It becomes more gel-like. It becomes more viscous. Pollock proposes that it takes on this hexagonal lattice, like a honeycomb.
Hmm.
And we found that he found that it's infrared energy that builds this water, and it takes on a negative electrical charge, and our cells run on a negative electrical charge. And as this negatively charged liquid crystal water starts to build against, like, let's say, a cell membrane, it pushes out a positively charged proton or hydrogen and creates this separation of charge, just like the separation of charge you would see in a 9-volt battery. And it holds potential energy. In fact, Pollock and his team out of the University of Washington put an electrode in the negatively charged water and one in the positively charged water that forms right outside of it. And it was enough to power an LED light bulb. Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah, LED
that
light bulbs. So
it's so cool. And that idea that we have this water battery inside of us is mind blowing. But not only that, when we feed the water inside of us with infrared energy from the sun, from movement, from red light, from infrared light, from cuddling, sitting next to a fire, saunas, All of these things build that infrared energy in the body, which build that water battery in the body. When we go outside and we get ultraviolet light exposure, that excites the electrons in that water lattice of liquid crystal easy water. And there's a way to look at the body where pain, inflammation, disease states are a deficiency in electrical charge or a deficiency in electrons. So now we have this idea that there's this water network that extends throughout the body to every cell and organelle within the cell that is able not only to create a water battery, but a network to shuttle electrons where there might be a deficiency in electrical charge in the body showing up as pain, inflammation, or disease. Completely new paradigm shifting way to look at the body and health.
Wow. So how does the water in our body relate to redox? The way that I understand redox in the body, I always need to I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor. I used to be a speech therapist. So what I used to have to do is take complex information and make it as simple as possible, and that's what works for my brain too. So my understanding of redox, and I would love your opinion on this analogy that I have, is I think about like redox is the movement of electrons throughout our body, which is the reduction oxidation reactions, because every time you lose, I mean, you gain an electron, it's a negative charge, so you're reducing. You add, you lose one, you oxidize, so it becomes a more positive charge. But the electrons flowing in the body, I think about it like a wiring in a house. So if the redox is not flowing properly, maybe there's like one wing of the house is not getting power, and then you in one outlet you stick something in and sparks are flying, and then in another room a light bulb is flickering, and then in another room like the fuse blows. So is that how we can understand like faulty redox? I mean, that's a silly analogy, but like, is that sort of relevant, or how do we make sense of all of this?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. It's all about the flow of energy, right? And what do we mean by that? We're really talking about the flow of electrons.
Okay.
And when we have high redox potential, that means that we have a lot of electrons available to donate to those oxidants. And we've heard a lot about oxidative damage, all of the potential things that that can cause in the body. And if we have that redox potential, if we have a surplus of electrons in the body, we can donate it and quench that oxidative damage or
Resting.
process in the
Yeah.
body. Yeah, the rusting, exactly. And
Okay.
it's really this flow, right? So we need a lot of electrons, and that can be from tending to that water battery within us, getting outside, natural light, grounding. We also need structures in the body that allow it to transmit also that water, healthy cell membranes, healthy DNA, healthy collagen networks in the body. And we need those oxidants, right? Because if we just had a surplus of electrons in one spot that stayed there, like your analogy of the house, then we have one place where you plug in a light and it's sparking and going crazy, and the other room is dark, right? So
Okay.
we need that flow. So it's all those things. But I think where a lot of people are being, where there's a block in that flow of energy, it's because there's not enough electrons, and the structures that allow them to transmit are faulty, are dysfunctional, are
Mm,
damaged, not resilient. Our cell membranes are rigid and not flexible. Our water networks in the body are dehydrated and fragile. And so that's where I think we see the most potential for stepping in and supporting that system in the body, because when that energy is flowing, that's when we get back to that state of balance and have health.
wow. Okay. That really helps. Thank you for that. And I am wondering now, I know you talk a lot about fascia, and it's something that I feel like many people know on the surface what it is, but they don't myself included, fully understand it from a quantum perspective. I mean, I don't expect to fully understand. I don't think it is fully understood by anyone yet. But I guess to enhance our understanding and depth of knowledge on the fascia, and I can see that that's playing a role with the quantum communication highway, I guess, in our body. Would you say like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when we're talking about fascia, we need to understand fascia was that thing in naturopathic medical school and cadaver lab we would remove from an organ to study the real thing, right? It's that
Okay.
thin covering.
Like
Um,
on a
uh,
chicken cutlet?
yeah,
Okay. Because
exactly.
I haven't
Exactly.
touched a cadaver, so I think most of the audience will know a little bit more about a chicken cutlet. Joke.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And that's a much
Yes, but I understand.
friendlier analogy. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. But
That
we
that
obviously we have it
thing.
in our it's around all of our organs though, you're saying. So it's all over our
Yeah.
body, right?
It connects every single structure in the body, but more than that, when you look at fascia, it's mostly connective tissue. And connective tissue is mostly collagen. And we have this collagen fascial network that starts at our most external layers of our skin. It goes all the way down to our bones. So it's really this body-wide fabric that connects everything. And it's mostly made out of collagen, and collagen is semiconductive. Back to that idea of being able to transmit energy in the body. And it is completely lined in this easy exclusion zone liquid crystal water that we're talking about. And so we have that water that is able to create the surplus of electrons, and we have this collagen that's semiconductive and able to transmit it. You know, Pollock did an incredible study where he molded a collagen tubule. He put it in water, kind of to simulate our own internal environment, exposed that to infrared energy. And what he found was, yes, this water starts to form, this liquid crystal water starts to form on the inside of the tube. It creates that negative charge and creates that positive zone right outside of it, creating that water battery. But what he found was something really incredible. He saw that as long as that infrared energy was present, it powered the flow of water through that collagen tubule. There was no other force pushing that water through, just that water battery. And it propelled that water, it propelled particles, it propelled protons through this tubule of fascia. So now you have this idea not only of this electrical conduction and this water battery, but also this highway of tubules, because our collagen's made up of these really small triple helixes of collagen that create these tubules that are called troponano collagen tubules, right? And so they are really, really small tubules that are filled with water on the inside, on the outside, this specialized liquid crystal water that powers the flow of protons, of particles and water. And protons also create energy when they flow, and they also hold information. So just like you said, now we're looking at this quantum information highway in the body, like a fiber optic system that's
Mm.
connecting every structure. Absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah, so cool. Do you have an example that you could pull up to make an analogy for people to help them understand why the body needs to communicate this quickly? I feel like that's like a disconnect when it's like, oh, we can send these electrons, like, and people are like, so what does that mean? Like, why is that important? And I myself could feel like I could benefit from an analogy if you could think of one.
Yeah, that's a great question, because why do we care? Like, this stuff is super cool, super
Yeah.
nerdy, super fun, but why do we care?
Hmm.
Because it represents a fast, efficient, elegant way to communicate in the body. And that translates to a faster, more efficient way to heal. If
Mm,
we only stick to this chemical mechanical model, we have all the same dead ends. If
okay.
we can expand our understanding, and utilize this quantum biology approach to health and healing, then we have a faster, more efficient way to heal, to affect our health. And I think that's what we are all looking for. And it doesn't
Okay.
negate that chemical mechanical model, it just expands on it, right? So we
Okay.
can have both of them hand in hand. In fact, we should, because they're
Mhm.
both valid, they're both true, they're both working in the body. But to ignore that, we give up this fast, super efficient, it's like using uh, Pony Express or the US Postal Service to deliver every message when we could be using Wi-Fi and, the internet to send
Mhm.
our messages instantaneously. If our
Okay.
body needs to get those messages, it's okay to have some of them go by mail. I love to get things in the mail, right?
Yeah.
But if I need to send a message right now, I am so grateful that we have this super fast, efficient way to communicate with each other. And that's what this represents in the body.
Okay, that's helpful. And so, would you say, for example, like let's say I'm struggling with liver issues and my liver it doesn't maybe have enough energy to run all the programs that it needs to and do all its jobs. Now, would this sort of quantum approach help? For example, it's like, oh, maybe a certain area has an excess of electrons and it's like, oh, the liver is really struggling, it needs to get electrons so it can work on this detox pathway or something, and then so the body can shuttle resources to a certain place. Is that sort of a simplified overview of how it might work?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. And
Okay.
and we see that. We see that with mitochondria. We see that with just electrons in general, that they can transfer energy in a network. And they can do it almost instantaneously. I mean, the speed of light is really fast, right? It's just mind-boggling to think of how fast that is, and that's what we're talking about here. And so,
Whoa.
this almost instantaneous speed of communication allows for that transfer of energy and information in the body. And that opens up a completely new horizon for our health.
Wow. Okay. So interesting. So I have one more thing that I wanted to ask you about because I have not heard anyone else in this quantum biology space talk about this like you do, and that is sound. I feel personally very affected by sounds. I'm very affected by like light. I'm smells. I'm a sensitive, person. But like even now, I hear my air conditioner going off, and it's hard for me to tune it out. I don't like certain sounds. Like, how does sound impact our health?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great thing. And I think a lot of people kind of, again, push that to the side, thinking it's not a primary mover of our health when it really is. When you
Mhm.
think of two tuning forks, again, we have that almost instantaneous communication where you strike one tuning fork and the other one starts to sing. There is a shared energy and information there between those two tuning forks that happens because of sound. We could also say it happens because of vibration, because sound is a pressure wave. To make it most simple, I mean, we could talk about how it's spherical and really get nerdy on it, but to keep it simple, it's a wave of pressure. It's a vibration. And in that vibration, it holds the energy to push biological function. Let's take, for example, a swing, right? On a playground. So if my daughter is swinging on a swing and her body can only get so high and she says, "Mom, can you help me get higher? I want to go higher on the swing." I'm going to push her at the right point. I'm going to find that resonance with her swinging motion, and I'm going to push her at the right point so that that swing goes higher and that she can
Mhm.
have that exhilaration of going high on a swing, right?
Mhm.
That's what sound does. That's an example of resonance and frequency and being able to get to a higher amplitude. And we see that sound has a really profound impact on our biology. It affects this water network within us. We know that through the work of cymatics. I mean, there was just a research study out from this year that found that our cells not only emit sounds, we've known that for years, but they hear sounds. Our cells change genetic expression when exposed to different sounds because we think of it like, oh, we turn on the radio. I like that song. I don't like that song. Those are waves of information, and
Hmm.
our body is listening to that, and it can help fold proteins to create biological action in the body. I mean, it's really, really powerful what sound can do. John Stewart Reed and Professor Sunjul G have been researching the effects of sound on our cells in the body. They've been looking at white blood cells and red blood cells, and they found that low frequency sound, like that found in popular music, like that found in our heartbeat, actually revitalize damaged cells. So when you get when you get donated blood from the blood bank, there's a percentage of those cells, that red blood cells, that are happy and vitalized, carrying oxygen, ready to go. There's a proportion of those cells that are dysfunctional. They're kind of working, but they're not doing that great. They're kind of damaged. And then there's a proportion that's dead. And that's just how it is, right? That's constantly having this turnover. What they found was just 10 minutes of low frequency sound was able to revitalize and repair those cells in the middle category, so that those damaged dysfunctional cells were repaired, were vital. And what's more, they found that those cells could carry more oxygen. It increased their oxygen binding capacity so that oxygen could get throughout the body. So, I mean, these are just a couple examples of how truly amazing sound is and how foundational it can be to our biological function and our health.
Wow, that is so cool. And I mean, it does make sense because we're talking about earlier about the electromagnetic spectrum, which is frequency, and sound is another frequency. And, so it's not that far off. It's just a different type, right? I mean, EMFs are a frequency. So there's just a lot of things around us that are, resonating. But I also know that the the sounds that are found in nature, they are helpful to help us harmonize and support structuring the water in our body and things like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Our nervous system is primed to look for those signals of safety. And we can find that in the bird song, in the breeze through the trees. I mean, it's incredible.
Wow, that's so cool. I feel like we could talk all day, but I would love to hear. I'm so excited about your book coming out in January. So can you tell us more about the book and what we can expect to learn about? And
Yes, I'm
yeah.
so excited about it. It's called Optimize. Optimize 7 groundbreaking steps to better health and longevity through quantum biology. And so it starts out with kind of an overview of what we're talking about. What is quantum biology? Why do we care about it? And then the next chapter, we dive into water, and then we dive into these liquid crystal structures in the body that can carry this frequency information: fascia, cell membranes, DNA. Then we dive into the light, and then we dive into electricity, and then we look at this idea of coherence in the body and our thoughts and emotions and trauma. And then we look at the gut microbiome and our immune system, and it ends up with this comparison of ancient wisdom and emerging quantum biology research. So it's available now for pre-order. You can
Ooh, we
find
will
it.
link that. We'll link that in the show
Yeah.
notes. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so
Okay, great.
excited about that. And I'm hoping that it helps kind of push this information out there.
Yeah, and it sounds like today we kind of hit on a lot of those topics. So
Yeah.
if you're interested in what we talked about today, obviously pre-order the book. I'm so glad that you wrote this because I can't tell you how many people ask me for books, and it's like some of these books are so dense and so it's like a lot of information, but not necessarily the practical strategies, some science, and then how we fit that into our lives. And so it sounds like this is not written for like super, super science people, maybe, people who are into this, but it sounds approachable for
Yeah,
the average
yeah.
reader. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely brought the science, but each chapter ends with many pages of like tips, just
I love it.
practical tools. So, um,
Beautiful.
yeah,
I
it
love a
spans.
combination of both. So, yeah, because it's like, don't just tell me to go outside. I need to know what I'm benefiting, what's benefiting me right now, you know?
Yeah.
So, oh, that's amazing. And so we are going to link that for you for sure in the show notes. And make sure you follow Dr. Catherine on Instagram. You put out some of the most uplifting and just some of the visuals are so calming and soothing and helping to bring coherence to our Instagram feeds. And so she's a great person to follow on Instagram as well. And is there anything else that you want to share about? I know you have a practitioner course. Anything else? If you want to tell us more about that.
Um, well, I just love to get this information out there. So I've got some really introductory courses, I do free stuff at least once a month. And this book. So it's like the spectrum of like practitioner 6 month deep dive to introductory courses, free things, this book that's coming out, Optimize. So it's all there. I just really am excited and hopeful that this perspective can bring us a deeper sense of understanding of life and better health.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, so many of these strategies are free. And so they are accessible to people, even who are experiencing chronic fatigue, low mobility, overwhelm. They're designed to help us build more vitality so that we can, bring in more strategies to help us fully heal. So thank you so much for being here today, for sharing all this information. I can't wait for people to hear this.
It was wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. I love sharing this information. I love sharing it in conversations like this where you get it and we're just
Mhm.
riffing and going. So this has been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.